Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great summer solstice day. My name is Francis Donald, and I'd like to welcome you to this 12th session in an ongoing series of webinars on sacred number and geometry. If you'd like to view any of the first 11 sessions, they are available on makara.us. That's makara.us. If you have any questions about the GoToMeeting interface, feel free to type them in the text box and BL will get back to you on that. Okay, during our 4 sessions on the number 4, we focus mainly on 2 areas. 4 as the lower quaternary, which is, depending on one's level of consciousness, either an imprisoning cube or a field of service. And secondly, 4 as the midway point, the threshold of release. These 2 concepts are, of course, related, the latter being the highest aspect of the former. Directly above these personality-defining subplanes are the 3 subplanes of the higher mental plane, where for humanity, the 5th principle of manas, or mind, comes to fruition. As we will discover, the number 5 and the principle of manas are deeply connected. The 5th principle, which originates on the cosmic mental plane, the 5th cosmic plane, is the source of the vitalizing monastic energy that makes possible our existence. For without it, there would be no monastic devas carrying out the will to be, and thus no humanity. At the highest level, this will to be demonstrates as Brahma. DK says, the 5 Kumaras, or the 5 mind-born sons of Brahma, are the embodiers of the monastic force on our planet. But they only reflect, in the hierarchy of our planet, the function of the 5 Kumaras, or Rishis, who are the lords of the 5 rays manifesting through the 4 lesser planets and the synthesizing planet. So, Brahma is Manas, the principle of mind, manifesting in our solar system through the 5 planetary logi who demonstrate the energies of rays 4, 5, 6, and 7, energies synthesized by the 3rd ray planetary logos. These greater 5 are reflected into the human kingdom by 5 Kumaras connected with the earth scheme. These Kumaras reside in Shambhala. Of these 5, the old commentary says, the 5 great lords unite their forces. In fellowship sublime, they work to raise the dead. Only thus can that word be spoken which brings the dead to life. Such is the work of man for God, of God for man. Of course, the dead are those whose consciousness is centered in the imprisoning square of the lower quaternary, otherwise known as the personality. DK says, Manas is the psychic effect of their, the 5 Kumaras, united group work, demonstrating primarily on the 5 lower subplanes of each plane. So do you see how the 5s are starting to stack up here? Got the 5th cosmic principle originating on the 5th cosmic plane and demonstrating through 5 Kumaras, who are the agents of the 5 mind-born sons of Brahma on the 5th plane of the cosmic physical plane, and affecting primarily the 5 lower subplanes of each plane by means of 5 rays, numbers 3 through 7, of which, according to DK, ray 5 is the central guiding energy, all for the purpose of facilitating humankind's transition into the 5th kingdom of nature. Okay, the link between the combined psychic effect of the 5 Kumaras and humanity is provided by the monastic devas, more usually called solar angels, but also known as Agnishvatas, fire Dhyanis, Asuras, the sons of mind, egos, higher selves, and the kingdom of souls. They carry out the work of the fifth principle by, quote, producing the union of the spiritual triad, or divine self, and the quaternary, or lower self. The lowest point of this spiritual triad, on the first and highest subplane of the mental plane, is the mental permanent atom, which is the center of pure reason, or abstract thought. But it's also the center that anchors and generates the will to be, or the will to incarnate. TK tells us that solar angels are the self-conscious principles, the builders or constructors of the egoic body on the higher mental levels. They're able to do this through use of a particular blending and fusing electrical or phohatic force. Thus, they are also called the transmuting fires. They are, quote, those agents who pass the life of God through their bodies of flame as it descends from the higher into the lower, and again as it ascends from the lower into the higher. This helps explain the old commentary quoted earlier, which reads, such is the work of man for God, that's the lower into the higher, and of God for man, which is the higher to the lower. So they're the divine intermediaries between the fourth and the sixth kingdom, known as the fifth kingdom. So solar angels are actually vehicles for and embodiments of the Buddhic life force, or love aspect, called the sons of wisdom. DK says, the ego, or the self-conscious identity, is in essence and in truth love wisdom, but manifests primarily as intelligent consciousness. This quality of intelligent consciousness, embodied by the kingdom of souls, is demonstrated and is still demonstrating through two great monastic phases. 21 million years ago, the gift of manas, manifesting as lower mind, ushered humankind from the animal kingdom into the human kingdom. Now, these same great beings, through focused meditation on their own plane, are drawing us up into the energetic field of higher mind, and thus into the fifth kingdom. So, the move from 4 to 5, in the fourth subplane of the mental plane, to the fifth, from the lower quaternary to the higher monastic subplanes, defines our abiding purpose. In the realm of symbol, this is represented by the move from the square by means of the cross, first to the six-pointed star, then to the five-pointed star, the latter recognized by many ancient cultures, including the Pythagoreans, as a symbol for the perfected human being. But esoterically, a human being's identification with a five-pointed star comes in two phases. DK tells us man, speaking symbolically, is the five-pointed star. And at the fiery points, the forces of the man pour out, and upon each fiery point appears a center of reception. These centers of reception are for eons expressive of the energy of the five non-sacred planets: the sun, veiling a planet; the moon, veiling a planet; the earth, Mars, and Pluto. Now, the higher meaning of the five-pointed star comes into play at the time of initiation. DK says, the five-pointed star is not only the sign and symbol of initiation, and finally, perfected man, but it is also the basic symbol of the etheric body and of the five centers which control the perfected man. the two head centers and the heart center, the throat center, and the center at the base of the spine. So, with this little bit of background, let's move into DK's three-part analysis of the five-pointed star. We'll start with the physical analysis. DK tells us, can we get a reader for this first instruction? This is the exoteric or physical plane attributes of the five-pointed star. Have a volunteer to read this short description?
Yes, we do. Please go ahead, Guadalupe. We can't hear you.
Maybe you're on self-mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Esoterically, this involves study of its form as a whole, of its lines, and therefore of its numerical significance, and also study of its sectional forms, by which I mean its arrangements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, what can we say about the lines, the numerical significance, and the arrangement of the forms that make up the five-pointed star? At this point, we're not looking for meaning or significance, but rather for a tabulation of this figure's physical attributes. As we make our mental list, we'd love to have you participate. When called on, please briefly describe a single physical attribute of this symbol. Your observations may seem obvious, like the ones listed here. That's fine. Any ideas that help us physically define this figure are useful. Okay, I'll start off our list with two ideas. When the five-pointed star is drawn using 5 lines, it becomes a pentagram, sometimes called a pentacle. This figure can be constructed by connecting every other point of a pentagon. Okay, so any further observations? What other physical attributes do you see? BL, do we have any takers?
Not yet.
I'll give them a moment to think.
Here we go. Hold on just one second, Michael. Helen says 5 triangles.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
there are 5 triangles involved. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, Michael, go ahead, please.
I was also going to say 5 triangles, but
Oh,
there's...
you guys, go ahead.
I was also going to say there are 5 triangles, but there's also an inverted pentagram in the center.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Yeah, so we have 5 isosceles triangles and an inverted pentagram. Remember, DK suggests that we study its sectional forms and that this is significant, which is what you've just pointed out. So what other physical attributes can we point out connected with this?
Please go ahead, Leah.
I think that there are actually 8 triangles.
8 triangles. Okay, how does that work?
Well, if you take the 5 on the perimeters, and then you have 3 larger ones.
Oh, let me see. Yes, I see what you mean. I wish I could draw on the screen. Yes, you do indeed. What Leah is doing is continuing. I'll just describe one. If you start at the upper point and you go 2 line sections to the right, and then you turn and go 2 line sections, and then you return to the upper point 3 line sections, you have a triangle. And there's 3 of those in total. Is that correct? Am I right in that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
great.
that gives you again the relationship of the 8, 5, and 3.
Right. That's true. Good point. That's one I missed myself. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have several
Great.
Comments and then hand. So
Mhm.
Gabriella has said it has 10 points or vertices.
That's correct.
And Iris says the lines from the outer points are of equal length.
Right. Yeah, from the outer to the inner points are of equal length. Correct.
And then please go ahead, Martin.
Yes, it appears to me there's only one horizontal line, and
correct.
there's 5 plus 1, which makes 6 sections altogether, except for that 8 configuration. But there's 6 sections, and there's one horizontal line.
Correct. Yeah, you could say there's 6 discrete, which are whole sections, and then you could, if you start combining sections, I haven't even tried that, but there's many, many more. Thank you, Martin. It's good to have you here.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any other physical attributes that
Wait
you
a minute.
see?
Nancy says it's interesting that it can be drawn by one continuous line.
Yes, indeed. This is one of the sort of magic qualities of the pentagram, that it can be drawn with one interweaving line, either clockwise or counterclockwise. And there's great emphasis put on this in certain practices. Great. Other ideas, other observations?
Please go ahead, Morya.
The horizontal line is the base of an inverted isosceles triangle as well.
Yes.
And there may be others in there, but my eye doesn't want to go there yet.
Oh, okay. It's the base. Let's see. The horizontal line is the base of an inverted isosceles triangle. I'm not seeing that, actually.
Okay, it goes from the left-hand point to the right-hand point of the horizontal line.
Right.
And down 2 sections.
Oh, gotcha. Yes.
Diagonally.
Right. Yes, indeed. You're correct. Right. In fact, that was one of the 3 triangles that Leah pointed out, the additional triangles. Is that correct?
Okay.
But she didn't make the point about the down pointing, so that's a legitimate additional point. Thank you. Very observant, guys. This is terrific. Any other thoughts?
Asha, please go ahead.
I'm kind of staring at it with closed eyes, and I'm trying to see it in 3D, but I'm kind of getting a 2.5D image of something that folds backwards. It's not a 3-dimensional shape, but it's sort of you stare at it with closed eyes, sort of half closed eyes. You see the first isosceles triangle from the left vertex going to the right one. That sort of folds back and it becomes 3-dimensional. Okay. And then the other one does too, but it doesn't follow suit for the top triangle. I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't know. What are you seeing?
Well, I've built many of the solids that have the pentagon included in them, and the points often do fold back. So maybe you're intuiting those platonic, they're called irregular solids.
Oh, okay.
With that, a future webinar I'll actually be doing a little show and tell with these and showing the many solids that include these figures. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
Yes, we have quite a few here. Let's go to Claire. Please go ahead.
Hi, Claire.
Hello, Francis. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to express this very articulately in words, but if you take the 5 lines of the outer pentagram, they create 5 triangles that move inwards and across that space. And if you take the inner pentagram and the 5 triangles that the outer lines of the inner pentagram make, they fall outwards. And there's this inner-outer dialogue happening, which is all contained within the one form.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know how else to put it.
Mm-hmm. And the pentagram is really the central and motive force of that process, right? You could look at it. It's if I'm seeing what you're saying, each of them is a four-sided figure, right? With the long isosceles triangle that takes two. Like if we take the top isosceles triangle and extend it down one section on each side, and then we close it with the two bottom sections of the pentagram, we have one of those figures that extends outward. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
It would be so much easier to draw it, wouldn't it?
Oh, wouldn't it?
There's so many forms within forms that it's quite hard to put it into words. But yes, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's difficult and frustrating. I think I'm seeing what you're talking about, but
it's as though there are 5 triangles from the outside pointing inwards, and then from the inside out, there are 5 pointing outwards. Just to put it in
if you were to, you mean if you were to draw a central point in the pentagon, and that would have
you just take the outer edges, and you see it almost like origami, and the triangles fold in across each other to form the pentagon.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then from the inside out, they form the square. I mean, the star.
Now I got you. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So if you took one, like say the top isosceles triangle, and you folded it down, it would touch the bottom point of the inverted pentagon, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, I see. Gotcha. Cool. That's a great observation. Thank you. I don't think we got all of what you said with that example, but at least we moved into your realm of thinking there. So any other thoughts here?
Yes, we have quite a few. Let me start with the comments that were typed. Helen says the triangles above and below the horizontal line form a square.
Right, okay.
Gabriella says resting on any two of its points, it is the same figure, which is to say it's regular.
Say that again. I was still thinking about the square. Actually, I see a four-sided figure rather than a square per se, if you were to connect the outer points. Am I missing something with that? Let me see. I think it forms a parallelogram, each two of them. And if you put those two together, you would have a regular long rectangle. But again, I may be seeing something slightly different. You know, as we move into these more complex figures, not that this is all that complex, but, you know, it's actually easy to talk about a triangle because it's so basic. But, you know, we're now experiencing some of the difficulty that we're going to be having as we move into the more complex figures. But anyway, Gabrielle, again, what was that point?
Resting on any two of its points, it is the same figure.
What resting on any two?
My interpretation of that is rotating it on any of its 2 points, it's the same figure, which is to say it's regular.
Sure. I gotcha. Okay, yeah. So if... Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me hear.
That's interesting because...
Did I get that right, Gabriella?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's interesting because part of that would also be if you just rotate it 1 point, that you get an inversion, right? And then if you rotate it 2 points, you're back to the upright. Am I right in assuming that's what you meant by that?
Yes, right.
Okay, great.
I take it. Yes, right.
Terrific. Okay, let's keep moving. We got a lot of...
We do. Michael says the star within the pentagram has at least 15 triangles. And I was noticing that. As you guys were saying how many there were, I was noticing a lot more. Michael counted at least 15.
Yeah, well, you have 10 immediately, just discretely, meaning without any crossed lines. And I think actually you have many more than that. Gosh, I didn't go in and count these. And it's a mind-bending process to do it. You're welcome to do it on your own and present me with your result anytime during this process. But if you allow for those triangles
He typed another one in later. I'm now seeing at least 25 triangles.
Yeah, okay, there you have it. Right. And not to mention the inferred triangles, such as Claire was pointing out, which would probably up the figure quite a bit, folding triangles inwards. Yes. Also, you may notice that. Oh well, I won't give my input yet, but I just have an additional insight. And the next thought on this.
Please go ahead, Scott.
Sometimes the.
Oops. We can hardly hear you. You're really breaking up.
Speak slowly and very articulately, and we may hear you through the sound anyway.
I turned up my volume better.
No, it's not your volume. It's a distortion.
Actually, why don't you type it in?
Because I talk too much and I can't type that much. Let me try this again.
The clicks are sounding better than the distortion before. Try it again.
Oh, okay.
Scott.
Try it again.
No. Same thing. You're getting an echo, and you sound like you are a 50-50 mix with a grizzly bear.
well, usually. So is that? Okay.
No, you're undecipherable. I'm sorry to say. Try unplugging your headphone and plugging it back in.
I just did that.
Oh, you did that. Okay. Gosh, can't tell you what the problem is, but it's there. You know what? Unplug your headset altogether and just speak straight into your computer. If you have a microphone.
I'll try.
Just unplug it. Just unplug your headphone.
Francis, put yourself on mute while he's talking.
Oh. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh. Woohoo! Unplugged.
Just unplug it. Go ahead.
One way of describing the pentagram is it's 5 letter A's, 5 A's put together.
Yes. See the capital A's, everyone? It's if you start from the top point and you go down to the right and to the left, 2 segments, and then the horizontal crossing line gives you 2 capital A's. So you have 5 A's.
We can use the other lines from the inner pentagon to do that. So you have 5 A's.
Yes.
The vertex angle of each is 36 degrees.
Correct.
The other angles, if you look in the pentagon, are each 36. So it's 108 for each pentagon major angle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 36 for the inscribed pentagon.
Right. Correct. Yeah. Good point. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Very nice point.
How do I mute myself here? Let's see.
Now that's a little trickier. You'll have to.
I muted you.
There you go. Not to worry.
Okay. SR says the inverted pentagram contains the uprighted one. The uprighted pentagram contains the inverted. As above, so below.
Yes,
as
indeed.
within, so without.
Right. Okay. You're moving into Plan B, which is the meaning of these, and but your original statement holds even as a physical attribute, which is that they are always a combination of upright and inversion when you take into account the center section. Any other thoughts?
Please go ahead, Guadalupe.
Yes, it's a little bit of follow-up on the pentagram. When there is, the pentagram is in 2 points, there is a sense of stability. And if you rotate 2 points at a time, any place, it's still a very stable figure. If you only rotate 1 point, it becomes somehow an unstable figure.
Interesting. Well, that's that's similar to the the point Gabrielle made. Thank you for that. Another thought?
Go ahead, Asha, please.
2 points, please. Yeah, two things. First, I don't know if it's a function of the fact that I was just napping and I'm sipping a cup of tea to wake myself up, but as I squint my eyes, I keep seeing it morph into different 3D like things, almost like a Harry Potter stairwell that goes in and out.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like, and then I'm seeing different things come forward and backwards, and then it changes, and then I squint, and then I see, and then it goes 2D again. So it's changing constantly.
Yeah, could you send me the name of that tea that you're drinking? I'd like to get a large box of that, actually. Might be just the thing.
British Blend Tetleys.
Oh, gosh. That's it. I've never tried it.
If I squint enough, I'll actually see it. It morphs into a 3D thing, then the top moves, and then I can see the bottom lines move, and then it goes back and forth and back and forth. So I don't know. And the second point was the left one is probably stating the obvious, that if you were to take the outer petals and make it into, that would be a pentagonal pyramid, sort of, you know. Right? Is that just obvious?
If you were to bend them up and have them meet in the center, you would have a octagonal pyramid. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. It seems as though that would be the case. In fact, I can't see how it couldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very astute. Makes me want to immediately do it.
Yeah, you can almost just see it do that, right?
Yeah, thank you.
It's all because of tea.
And that would be a six-sided figure as well.
Right, six-sided figure, right.
Right. Anyone else have thoughts on this figure? Either of them, actually, that are shown here.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Alex.
Hiya. Just a physical attribute, I'm looking at rhombuses. So going from the baseline, the rhombus slants to the left, there's one slanting to the right, and then there's one at the top forming like a diamond. And I don't know if there's any more, but that's what I'm looking at.
Right, I see those three immediately.
And each one of them has 5 triangles and a pentagon within it. And that's
really good stuff. Yeah, I see that. And you said it in such a way that we could see it immediately. It's almost, it's like three. She's talking about the figure on the right.
Yeah.
And she's describing the rhomboids, which are 4-sided figures that are at a slant with 2 horizontal lines and 2 slanting lines for one of those figures. And then the top one is diamond-shaped. So, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
Yes, this is Martin. Simple fact, there are 4 lines. If you connect point to point, point to point, point to point, point to point, there's 4 lines. So this is intrinsically a 5, intrinsically a 1, and intrinsically a 4, and implicitly a 6, etc. There are a lot of numbers contained in there.
I'm not seeing.
In other words, if you go from one point on the star on the left,
right,
and draw it down to the next point, that's 1 line.
Right.
If you repeat that 3 more times, you've completed the diagram. That makes 4 lines altogether.
Well, I see 5.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I see. Where was my 4? Oh, I'll have to look at it again. Thank you.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I was just drinking an English tea. I don't know what that would do.
Well, make sure you guys exchange email addresses. Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Martin.
And this would be a good time to say that Clesia, maybe I'm saying that wrong, says the lines cross 5 times.
Yes, let's see. Is that true? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it depends how you look at it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
In the
8.
middle.
I'm seeing 10 crosses. If you were to draw this with the 5 lines starting at the top, you draw down to the right, you cross, then you cross, you get to the bottom point, and then you come up to the left, you cross, and then across the horizontal line, a double cross, and then back down to the bar point, a double cross. So I see 10 crossing points. But nonetheless, the point is made. We have, I'm not seeing 5, I've seen 10. Unless you can explain it that there's 5.
I guess it's here. Okay, you're on self-mute, but if you unself-mute Clecia or however, I'm probably butchering that. You're still on self-mute.
Hi, Clecia. You were at the conference, right?
There you go.
Hi, go ahead and speak.
No, I wasn't. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. No, I was just basically looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't actually draw the double. I see what you mean.
Oh, okay. Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your input. And thanks for joining us. Is this your first time? Okay. Do we have any?
No, once before, but I struggled to connect sometimes. So, yes.
I see. Well, it's fine.
But I've been following everyone, yeah.
Oh, great. Good to have you with us. Anyone else have any thoughts on this figure?
Go ahead, please, Victor.
Hi. I was looking at the pentagrams. You have, every time you change your viewpoint, it's still a pentagram. And so you have the exterior pentagram from the points of the star, and then you have the interior pentagram, and as you look at the bottom pentagram on the outside, the base is there, and then the interior pentagram is pointing toward that base. If you rotate your point of view and you look at that pentagram, that interior pentagram continues to point to the base, no matter what point of view you have on that star.
I see what you mean. Yeah. It's part of this quality of opposition or duality that's inherent in this 5-pointed star. It's one of the links between 5 and 2, or polarity, and this concept of 5. And in fact, philosophically, we'll see that 5 and 2 are very closely related. Thank you, Victor. Any other thoughts?
Please go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, okay.
You just self-muted yourself. Oh, there you go.
Hi, okay. Yes, Francis, I've been thinking about the idea that it can be drawn with one line, and I'm wondering, are there any other geometrical figures that can be drawn with only one line, continuously like that? It seems there's some significance in that.
Yes, there are. For instance, the square. However,
of course.
the triangle.
Well, of course, yes, but of the more complex one, beyond the triangle and the square.
Yeah, the odd-numbered figures, such as the 7-pointed star, which we'll have a brief look at a little later, can be drawn that way. It's a quality of the odd-numbered figures. Even-numbered figures, once you get past 4, where really all you're doing is describing the perimeter, you don't have that. With the 6-pointed star, if you cross, you have to lift your pencil to draw the second triangle. Now, if you just describe the perimeter, of course, you can do it with any figure. So, in a way, if you could qualify your statement by saying, except for the process of drawing the perimeter, which of course you could do that with any figure, then only the odd numbered figures can you do that with.
So you can do it with a 7-pointed star.
That's right, and the 9 and the 11 and so on, because you're skipping a point, and which is the 5-pointed star. It's obviously the first one you can do that with, but try it, and you'll find that you return to number 1
That's
with the final leg. Yeah. We'll see that on the 7-pointed star, and I'll point that out when we get to it in a little bit.
Okay.
So any other thoughts, folks? This has been an incredible exploration. It's just terrific.
That's all I see in the way of comments and hands.
Okay,
so.
Great. Let's move on, because time is an issue. Though it's just terrific to have these many observations. So here's some additional physical attributes, and many of these you will have touched upon, but I will mention them anyway because that way you can see the illustrations. The 5 lines that make up the figure can be drawn in a continuous interweaving movement, either clockwise or counterclockwise. This was brought up. These 5 lines create an interior reverse pentagon, which was brought up many times. If we consider its sectional forms, as DK recommends, we see this inner pentagon surrounded by an array of 5 equal-sized isosceles triangles. This was also brought up. When every other point of the inner pentagon is connected, a reversed 5-pointed star is seen, which has at its center an upright pentagon, which this was also brought up. You've really covered the bases, folks. It's great. Within this interpentagon, an upright 5-pointed star can be constructed. This alternation of pentagrams and pentagons continues ad infinitum towards, but never reaching, the central point of the figure. The 5 outer points are contiguous with an enclosing circle, as are the 5 inner points of the pentagon. A third circle can be inscribed within the pentagon. So just like on some of the 3D figures that we've looked at, you have this 3-circle configuration connected with the pentagon. Okay, only one of the 5 lines that makes up the 5-pointed star lies on the horizontal axis. This was also brought up. This line lies above the center point of the figure. 4 of the 5 triangles stand beneath this horizontal line. None of the star's lines lie on a vertical axis, though the central axis of the upper isosceles triangle is oriented to a vertical axis. The highest point of the star and the lowest point of the inner reverse pentagon imply this vertical axis. In an upright 5-pointed star, one isosceles triangle points directly upwards and 2 point in a downward direction. 3 of the isosceles triangle's endpoints lie above the center point and 2 lie below it. As Scott pointed out, there are 3 angles found in the 5-pointed star: 36 degrees, 72 degrees, and 108 degrees. 5 times 72 equals 360 degrees. That's what allows the pentagon to be a regular figure. The pentagram contains 10 points, as Gabrielle, I believe, pointed out. 5 points of the star and the 5 vertices of the inner pentagon. The 5 lines of the 5-pointed star could also be seen as 15 lines, 10 longer lines enclosing 5 shorter lines. The ratio of the relationship of these two line lengths is in a golden mean proportion of 1 to 1.618. In fact, the 5-pointed star is a template for golden mean or phi relationships. The formal definition of the phi ratio is a line divided in such a way that the whole is to the larger part as the larger part is to the smaller. In this illustration, the blue is in proportion to the red as the red is to the green. But this definition, as well as the numbers defining this relationship, which is 1 to 1.618, only begin to reveal the true meaning of phi. Not until we write it out as a formula do we see that phi is oneness in relationship with itself, or as Michael Schneider describes it in A Beginner's Guide to the Universe, embedded monads unfurling as far as we can see in a self-replicating rhythm. Since our next webinar will focus almost entirely on the golden proportion, we'll leave it at this for now in terms of exploring this concept. Does anyone see any additional physical attributes of the 5-pointed star before we move on to the next phase? Any last thoughts? Or did my further analysis bring up any additional ideas? Okay. One of the main purposes of a physical analysis is to stimulate our imaginations for the next step. So let's move on to the conceptual analysis of this figure. Can we get a reader for this this paragraph out of Glamour, a World Problem?
Don't everybody volunteer at once. There we go. Go ahead, please, Leah. You're on self-mute. There.
Conceptually, this involves arriving at its underlying idea, which may be expressed in its name, at its meaning as that emerges in the consciousness through meditation, and at its significance as a whole or in part. You should, when doing this, bear in mind that the idea connotes the higher or abstract intent, that the meaning is that intent expressed in terms of the concrete mind, and that its significance has in it more of an emotional quality, and it might be expressed as the type of desire it arouses in you.
Thank you. So DK ascribes meaning to the concrete mind and significance to the emotional realm. So considering our list of physical attributes, you should be able to read that very quickly, what meaning or significance can we ascribe to the 5-pointed star? I'll give you a minute to review this list, which most of these points you brought out in our discussion. So ponder on this and see if you can extrapolate a subjective meaning based on these physical attributes. While you're thinking, I'll give a couple of examples. 5-pointed star has been used to signify excellence across many disciplines, from book and movie reviews to the ratings of military officers, with 5-pointed stars representing the highest rating and rank. The 5-pointed star has been used to represent both the human body and humankind throughout the ages. So, any further ideas about the meaning and significance of the 5-pointed star? As you're thinking about this, keep an eye on this list. So, BL, do we have any takers?
We have a comment here.
Okay.
From Asha.
So we see this amazing intricate order. What happens mathematically and geometrically when we are in a chaotic node energetically? Do these structures fall apart, or do the laws conform to a different vibration dimension? Kind of like Newtonian versus quantum. If you see what I mean, Any comments or thoughts to ponder?
Yeah, the laws are not broken by the lower ever. The laws hold and stay supreme because they are at causal levels. So the chaos, actually the 5-pointed star in this case, and sacred geometrical figures and number in general, can be guideposts to take us out of our chaos. Along this line, it's interesting to note that DK says that as the disciple progresses, that his that single figure that represents his consciousness moves from being a chaotic and complex outline that is irregular in its orientation to, as once the integrated personality comes into being, to a much stronger, the lines become much stronger and regular, but still complex. And as they move, as one moves up the evolutionary scale, it becomes simpler and simpler until you move literally from the 6-pointed to the 5-pointed star, and then to the triangle, and eventually to the circle. This, so this, I think, relates to your concept. So, do we have any other interpretations of the meaning or significance of the 5-pointed star based on these, or just in your own thinking?
Go ahead, please, Leah. You're there.
I think that the 5 and the association with 5 seems to be a great nurturer for mankind, allowing them to evolve. You look at the 5 related to Venus, and if you just take the fruits that we eat, those with the 5-pointed star within them are nutritious for man, whereas the 6 is poisonous.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Yeah, we'll be talking about this a lot in this section on the golden mean, because 5 is inextricably related to the natural growth patterns of not just fruits, but many vegetables. I think it's the cucumber that if you do a cross-section, you also get a 5 seed pattern. Of course, yeah, I don't know, maybe a cucumber is considered a fruit technically, I don't know. But yes, it's intrinsic to natural growth, and we'll be talking a lot about this. And yes, 6 often is the hallmark of a poisonous plant. So yeah, thank you for that, Leah. Any other thoughts?
Yes, we have a couple of hands, but we also have a couple of comments, so let me do them real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please comment on the 108-degree angle? Because it's not an even one. It's the addition of, you comment on it.
Well, 105 and 108 are both sacred numbers in Buddhism. And if you add 1 and 8, you get the number of completion, 9, which is the, as we'll be spending at least one webinar on the number 9. But it's a triple 3. It's also the number of initiation, which is one thing that it has a strong comment with the number 5, which I'm going to be bringing out in just a moment. And you also want to look at it as the 109, not just 9, but the 10 is the tetractys, which gives us the 10 of completion, which is also registered in the number of points in the pentagram. So there's a strong relationship, as we've seen with 5 and 10. and then also the 1 and 9 add to 10. So you have this interesting 9-10 quality going on, divided by this 0 point with the 108. And I'm happy to open this up to the floor. Does anybody else have any insights?
Astrologically, it's the 36 plus the 72, which equals the 108. So it's not divisible by 360 other than the 33333. But it's basically 3 of the 10 degree, the 36 degree increment. So it plays a very important part in the 5-pointed star astrologically with the tredecile or tredecile.
Is that what they call it? 108 degree?
Yes, it's 3, right, it's 3 36s. And the 36, of course, there's 10 of those in the, so that's one of the way that, let me see, we have Gabriel and Ash both said.
Okay. Any specifically related to the 108 at this point? Does anybody have any specific comments related to the 108?
We have some comments, but they've been there for a while. So here, everybody put their hand down for just 1 minute, and then only put it back up again if it relates to the 108. Okay, we got a couple of them relating to that. So let's, and then everybody else can, okay. Martin, please go ahead.
Somewhere I read that 108 was related to the moon. I don't know if anybody knows that, but one of the books on sacred geometry I was looking at related to moon cycles. Does anyone know about that?
Well, the one thing I can say right off the top is that it's the number of the moon arcanum in the tarot, the 18.
Okay.
18, and that's 3 6s, which give us the lower quaternary. You know, the 6 lower subplanes of the 3 lower planes is lunar by nature. And then,
thank you.
Yeah, and when you add the 1, you go from 18 to 19, then you have the solar arcanum, which is the one above, you could say, or the one irradiating. And the 1 and 9 add to 10 rather than to the 1 and 8 adding to 9.
Right, so, and the only other point I saw was that 108, 36, and 72, of course, all add up to 9.
That's right.
So there's a kind of sacredness within this sacredness or something.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah. Other thoughts on this 108 point?
Scott, please go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good, okay. Julia reminded me that in Hindu chanting, there's sometimes you have 108 names of God that are chanted.
That's right. That's right. And I may have been in error when I said it's a Buddhist sacred number. It may be more Hindu. However, when it's sacred to one belief system, if you go deep enough, you'll find that it's sacred to another. Okay.
Thinking in terms of 12 as a number of completion, 108 is 12 nines.
Oh, yeah.
And remembering also that we come across, if you do 4 times 108, we come up with a number that shows up, as does 108, in the length of the yugas, 432, 432,000 years and so forth. It shows up in multiple sizes of the yugas.
Yeah, and that points to a very interesting thing about number, which is we tend to think of number as being descriptive of a length of time, but when you're talking at this level that Scott just mentioned, it's also a period that is characterized by a particular quality that is exemplified by that number. So these numbers are very often glyphs or blinds in terms of the actual length, but they do describe the vibrational quality of that period in that's being discussed. Thanks, Scott, for that. Yeah, there's 108 chalices in the, for instance, in the chanting of the name of Hanuman. We have a Hanuman temple in Taos, and they start at pre-dawn, like at 5 in the morning, and it takes them till noon to chant the 108 names of Hanuman. So, yeah. Any other thoughts? Oh, actually, let's open it up. We need to come out of this rabbit hole.
Asha had a comment on that, and then I've got a couple of other comments that before we open it up to the 108. So please go ahead, Asha.
Yes, I come from India. I was born in England, but I remember the Rudraksha beads. We had 108 beads in the mala. There were 108 sisters in the Blue Rose Sisterhood that Tuya, Michael's wife, is doing. And I remember as a child sitting there when I would see these the mantrams, the 108 mantrams in the temple, like, oh my God, 108, when will this finish? That was my reaction as a child. But now I used to sit there, oh my gosh, but now I understand the reason behind it. I never understood it. I was just like, oh, this will take forever. But I remember just everything had to be chanted, 100, in the true,
108 times.
The Sanskrit mantras, and the 12 by 9 always. There's the 9 completion and the 12 being the 108. But I think Scott already mentioned all of these. But
yes, he did. Well, the 12 is a cosmic number of completion. So there's 12 constellations, but only 7 sacred planets. To give some relationship between the systemic and the cosmic numbers of completion. 9 is often associated with initiation. So yes, there's something that what you have to bring your mind to is the idea that something happens that is a result of that full cycle of completion, the 912, so the 108 repetitions. That is like an octave in terms of potency up from that single repetition.
So if there's something in your psyche that you do numerically and repetitively, I don't mean it's like in an OCD way, but I have a thing with numbers and the 12 by 12 and all of that. But I always used to have this thing, and I thought, oh, I was being a little bit OCD or what, but it's actually somewhere deep in our, in our psyche, in the collective psyche, these numbers.
It certainly is, and it's both deep and at a causal level. So it's in the, there's a strong link between the subconscious and the superconscious, because in both cases, the mind, or I should say the lower mind, is not ruling the process. So yes, the causal levels are really ruled by number and geometry. That ruled is not quite the right word, but there's a conforming of idea in its expression in terms of number and form. Okay, other thoughts? Subjective meaning or significance of the 5-pointed star?
Okay, we have from Iris, in numerology, moving from the square of the 4, 5 represents liberation, freedom, a breaking out of the box.
Yeah, absolutely. It is literally the box, which is the cube, which is the imprisoning square of the lower quaternary, that which has no resonance to the higher, intrinsic, until you cross the points, and then through the cross you rise above to the 5. It is indeed the, counting from evolutionally from the bottom up, it's the 5th subplane of every plane that releases you into the 5th kingdom of nature, especially on the mental plane. It's the 5th counting up that is in some ways the boundary into the fifth kingdom. This is true of, I mentioned this in previous webinars, that it's the fifth subplane on in the etheric that is that which attunes you to the higher etheric realms, because it's formless inherently when you move beyond the four. Okay, other thoughts?
Allison says 5 is innate to life. It is one of the numbers indicated in the carbon numbers in the DNA's sugar backbone.
Yes, indeed. It is literally the golden mean proportion, which is an extrapolation of 5, as you saw from 5.1 star, can be found literally in the DNA molecule. It can be mapped out. It's causal to the life force, and DK says as much. Other thoughts?
Victor, please go ahead. You're on self-mute. There you go.
Yes, I was thinking, you've got the 5 on the mental plane, but looking at the pentagon, not the pentagon, but the pentagram, an upward pointing pentagram, to me and probably to a lot of people, think towards spirit, and the downward pointing pentagram oftentimes is symbolized as the underworld or negative. You'd like to address that?
Yes. Yes, indeed. This is one of the major points that could be made about this. Remember I was talking about the duality that's inherent in the 5? This is the fundamental duality, is the upright and the reverse, and the association that you can make with that. Traditionally, with the 2 points pointing up, that it's a form-based or representation of evil, but we'll talk about just what evil is in a minute. Or we just have about 25 minutes left. So yes, thank you, Victor, for that. Other thoughts?
Gabrielle says, similar to what Asha said earlier, there's 108 beads in the Buddhist mala, and she also thinks there's 108 in the Catholic rosary.
Yes. Okay. There it is. It's that inherent number of completion, right?
So what does that bring us? 3 different major religions that are using that as a sacred number.
Yeah, which is a good.
At least.
Yeah, when you get that many, especially when they're major, then if you were to explore any discipline deep enough, you would probably find another reference to it, because it points to some intrinsic truth. Okay, other.
And Scott, please go ahead.
Sure. Couple more things about 108. If we can throw back to that. Think about 108 is 2 squared times 3 cubed. It's the 2 making the square, which is the 2-dimensional feminine, times the 3 cubed, which is masculine. That's 2 and 3 combination, which is part of the nature of the sacred marriage that 5 is about.
That's interesting, because we have the 3 36s that make the 108. So this is the idea of the 3 cubed and the 3 36 angles adding to the same is interesting. Yeah, and I like that. The idea it's a combination of the masculine and the feminine, and also if you take the common viewpoint of the masculine representing spirit, remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not men and women that we're talking about when we assign the masculine to the spirit and the feminine to the form, but simply the aspect of the Father being the spirit aspect. It's in these times a legitimate bone of contention, but men and women are not representatives of the masculine and feminine aspect only, right? So anyway, given that, 3 squared is by far the more dominant quality in terms of the numerical value compared to 2 squared. So you have, you could say, a right proportion adding to the totality of 108. You could even see that as, for instance, soul and personality in right relationship. So yeah, thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Okay.
I think that's all we got right now.
That's good. Okay. Then, all right, here's some other ideas. And some of them you almost certainly will have hit on, pointed out. For instance, this one. Victor pointed out that the upright figure could be viewed as being evolutionary and the down-pointed figure as involutionary. I'm reviewing these so that you can have some illustrations here. The series of stars and pentagons could be seen as representing alternation of form and spirit. For example, if we view the 5-pointed star as representing spirit and the pentagon as representing form, the upright star with its inner reversed pentagon could philosophically represent the soul-infused personality. The personality is not dominant, the spirit is, for it completely encloses the inner figure. Whereas the reversed pentagon with its inner reverse star could represent the personality or spirit immersed in matter. Using a different paradigm, these 3 nested stars with 2 upright and 1 reversed pentagram could represent the personality, soul, and monad. I'll leave it to you to decide whether the monad is the inner star or the outer star. The reverse star here representing the soul, involutionally oriented as it meditates on the personality. DK lends some support for both these interpretations when he says the 5-pointed star represents, quote, the synthesis of the lower into the abstract or higher. If we let the one horizontal line represent the consciousness of the jiva or indweller, we have an illustration whereon the quaternary, represented by the 4 lower points, have been transcended, and the vertically aligned upper isosceles triangle, representing spirit, has achieved mastery over the form. Again, there's a corroboration from DK. He tells us that when the initiate has identified with the 5-pointed star, he has become the 5-pointed star. He has sanctified, in the occult sense, the quaternary, and has used it as the foundation stone upon which to erect the Temple of Solomon. This idea of the 4 and the 1 also relates to the 5 elements, with spirit standing above, but also synthesizing the other 4. It's the same idea, just expressed in a different way. This belief was a cornerstone of ancient Asian philosophy and of the Pythagorean doctrine. Okay, we're told in a treatise on cosmic fire that the 5-pointed star is related to evolution via the 5 senses, which demonstrate on each of the 5 lower planes of the cosmic physical plane, and are thus inherently monastic. Okay, using this paradigm, a 5-pointed star could represent the complete expression of any one sense, as is illustrated in this diagram, or, alternately, all 5 senses on any one plane, as is illustrated in this diagram. In both cases, 5 5-pointed stars represent the 5 levels of all 5 senses. Here they are again. This is according to the sense, right? Each of the 5 senses that are related to, for instance, hearing, But we've talked in previous webinars, especially about the fourth sense, the qualities of the sense of taste being imagination, discrimination, and intuition. Okay. DK says the five-pointed star on the mental plane signifies, among other things, the evolution by means of the five senses in the three worlds. That means the lower quaternary, which are also capable of fivefold differentiation. Of the fifth principle, the attainment of self-consciousness and the development of the fifth spirula. If we had another 3 hours, we could talk about the fifth spirula, but that's going to have to wait for another webinar. DK repeatedly tells us that on the evolutionary path, the six-pointed star becomes the five-pointed star. Here's his description of the six-pointed star. We are concerning ourselves with that division of his nature, which concerns, and he's talking about the disciple, which concerns the process of making him the perfect six-pointed star during the preliminary stage, the threefold personality, and the threefold triad merged and blended perfectly, produce through the intermediate point of the causal body, and which, when the physical body is eliminated, make him the five-pointed star or perfected Manasa Putra. In the five-pointed star, all the influences produced by the physical body, which could be seen as the lowest point of the six-pointed star, are transcended. The five-pointed star is uniquely important during the first 7 initiations. No other symbol figures so prominently. Indeed, DK says in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, the star of initiation is, as you know, a five-pointed star. But why the five-pointed star? What is its actual significance during these initiations? One reason for its appearance, especially in the early initiations, is that it represents a triumph of the monastic or fifth principle, which is a major goal for this fifth subrace of the fifth root race. But in addition to this, the five-pointed star seems to be intimately connected with the identity of Sanat Kumara. We're told in Initiation Human and Solar, quote, it reveals the presence of the planetary logos to the initiate. And it does this in progressive stages. During the first 3 initiation ceremonies, the five-pointed star flashes out above the head of the initiate. But during the 5th initiation, we're told that the initiate literally becomes the five-pointed star. Not becomes like a five-pointed star or resonates with the vibration of a five-pointed star, but rather, in DK's words, the initiate becomes the five-pointed star. It descends upon him, merges in him, and he is seen at its very center. This extraordinary statement suggests 2 things. 1, the unique importance of this particular symbol to our process, for though the day lies far in the future, at least for most of us, we are all destined to become five-pointed stars. And 2, that a geometrical figure, such as a five-pointed star, can actually personify a high state of consciousness, in this case, a master of wisdom. This isn't the only time that DK links consciousness to the five-pointed star. We are told in reference to the astrological charts of disciples and initiates, the squares or quaternaries relate to material appearance or form expression. The star concerns the state of consciousness, and the triangles are related to spirit and synthesis. He goes on to say that these stars are, in the astrological archives of the hierarchy, depicted in a yellow or golden color, thus suggesting that though they appeared during the first 3 initiations on the monastic plane, They are essentially Buddhic in nature, just as are the solar angels. But we must remember that the essential being manifesting as any symbol always stands in a causal relationship to that symbol. DK says, remember that when we talk and think in symbols, we are placing something between ourselves and reality, something protective, interpretive, and significant, but something nevertheless veiling and hiding. After the fifth initiation, all veils are rent, and naught stands between the initiate and essential being. Okay, finally, at the sixth and seventh initiations, which take place on the Buddhic and Atmic planes respectively, we're told that the five-pointed star blazes from within itself and becomes the seven-pointed star. It descends upon the man and he enters within the flame. And that at the sixth initiation, the initiate becomes aware of that star which encloses his planetary star, just as that star has earlier been seen as enclosing his own tiny spark. The spark here referred to is the monad, and the star enclosing his planetary star is the solar logos. The actual configuration of the solar logoid star is not given. This represents the initiate's first conscious contact with the solar logos. That's at the sixth initiation. When this contact is made, he, quote, realizes within himself the oneness of all life and manifestation, and thus becomes an emancipated Buddha. Okay, we were talking about the seven-pointed star before. Here you can follow the points and see that you return to number one, as is true with all odd-numbered figures. You can see it cross and interlace and return to first point there. I've used it here to represent the rays, which are related to the colors, with indigo at the top, second ray, and then red, which is the first ray on the left, and green, the third ray on the right. That's in accordance with the charts given as to how the hierarchy is arranged. So you see it moving from 2 to 4, and from 4 to 6, from 6 to 1, from 1 to 3, from 3 to 5, from 5 to 7, and 7 back to 1. Okay. DK tells us that there are 5 localities which constitute the present modern exits for energies, which can carry out the creative process: New York, London, Geneva, Darjeeling, and Tokyo. I place these, and according just with my own intuition, it would be an interesting conversation to see, where we would place these 5. These 5 form a 5-pointed star of interlocking energies, symbolic of the major divisions of our modern civilization. In Destiny of Nations, he reveals that these, quote, exits for energies from the hierarchy into humanity take the form of the 5 monastic rays. Okay. The points of the pentagram are also associated with the 5-fold name of the Christ. IH, SH, VH, or Yeshua. Paul Foster Case, who wrote this wonderful book called simply The Tarot, describes this, this process. He says the letters at the 5 points of the pentagram are the Roman characters corresponding to Yod, He, Shin, Vav, and He. They are the letters which spell the divine name IHVH, Jehovah with the holy letter, Shin, symbol of the Holy Spirit, placed between the first 2 and the last 2 letters, thus IHVH. SHVH. This is the occult and Rosicrucian spelling of the name Yeshua, or Jesus. It is the symbol of the Word made flesh. Thus, every pentagram symbolizes the mystical name of IHSHVH, so, or Yeshua. So, do we have any additional observations about the subjective nature of the five-pointed star? Any thoughts that might have come forward during this time?
Okay, we have a couple of comments while you were talking. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, thanks.
From Nancy, this is a follow-on on the 108. It appears that the diameter of the sun is 108 times the diameter of the Earth.
Oh, that's fabulous, isn't it? That's just, you can gauge whether you are a natural sacred geometrist as to how excited that makes you, because it's that's just a wonderful association. Thanks, Nancy, for that. Terrific. Yes.
And then Morya says the diagram of the colored star indicating the elements corresponds to the Chinese five-element theory, which underlies its healing systems.
That's exactly right. It's a practical, esoteric system of healing that uses the system, indeed. Yeah. It was illustrated earlier that way. Any other thoughts?
I don't see any hands or comments. I'm sure everybody that you just went through a lot of stuff. So, okay, here we go.
I know. Okay.
Please go ahead, Guadalupe.
Also, in the First Nations colors, the four bottom ones in this Yeshua correspond to the four directions, and the what would be the SH, Shen, that corresponds to spirit.
Right, or the above.
Yes, the above, or spirit.
Yeah, that's the belief that you just described was actually held by the Assyrians and the Sumerians. This was their practical understanding of the five-pointed star was just what you said, and that it was a sigil of the ruler, of the ruling monarch, who, in those days the monarch was considered deity, because to be a monarch you had to train to unite with the higher forces, and therefore it's very similar to the Uraeus in the forehead. The SH at the top and this upper isosceles triangle can be related to the Uraeus in the forehead of the pharaoh. It suggests the master. And what did we just hear from DK? That this is the symbol of the master. But more than that, you become the five-pointed star when you take the fifth initiation. It's not just that it's your sigil in some mysterious way, and this is prime material for meditation. You actually become the five-pointed star. It's an extraordinary thing. It's very much like saying the indigo is the goal of endeavor. That's a direct quote from DK. It's the goal of endeavor, right? Just in the same way as the five-pointed star is the goal of the fifth initiation. Okay. Other thoughts?
Please go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, about the five-pointed star inverted. You went by that, and you may go by it again. The downward pointing star, of course, is usually associated, and properly so, with black magic. But it also has a esoteric element to it, I think, that goes back to it representing the downward descent of spirit or soul actually into humans. It's the descending dove. It is Venus, which is why the five-pointed star is associated with Venus, and the descent of mind into man, the descent, the downward pointing five-pointed star there is sacred. But normally it's human realm, it's considered an emblem of and usage in black magic only.
Absolutely. This is the difference between What unit of consciousness are you talking about? In a personality, it's form orientation, which is the obscuration of spirit. When it's on the upper realms, such as the soul, you're talking about the down-pointing star is actually a symbol of the soul turning its attention in an evolutionary way, which at that level is an act of sacrifice in order to raise the dead, right, which is the personality. So, very good point. When I when I showed the figure of the 5-point star in triple, with the inner one down pointed, and suggesting the monad, the personality, and the soul in that figure was down pointing. Yes.
I think also that the idea here with the upward pointing star as a conscious human is that the spirit, that the head and the intent, the consciousness is pointed upwards. To turn it upside down is put the feet upward and the head back into matter, into personality, into a selfish approach.
Yeah, it's really a question of orientation, which is a much more enlightened way to look at the concept of evil. Also, the whole concept of mental polarity can be described by the upper pointing 5-pointed star. Because mental polarity doesn't mean you know a lot of facts. It's in fact that can lead to a thing called the eighth sphere, which is a whole other discussion. It's the upward. It's the top 3 subplanes of the mental that's always referred to when we're talking about mental polarity, because that's the lowest reaches of the realm of the soul. Any other thoughts? Okay, folks, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we do. We have a couple here. Asha says, I thought the 6-pointed star was associated with Venus. And then also that the Steiner schools used the pentatonic scale in music for the children.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, okay. I'll look into that for one of the webinars on 5, which it looks like we're going to have at least 2 more, because one of them is going to be completely taken up with phi and the golden mean. So, yeah, okay, that's a good point. Okay, any other points concerning the subjective
Do you want to address the 6-pointed star with Venus?
That's not something I'm familiar with. If anyone else is, I will cede the floor to them. Does anybody know about this?
I've always heard it as the 5. I don't see any other hands or comments.
Yeah. It's GK associates it with this at its highest level with this balance between spirit and form. It's the balance point between the influence of the spiritual triad and the influence of the personality. And it's interesting. Remember where we looked at the vertical, the median line on the top of the pentagram, the only horizontal line. If we take that to mean the state of consciousness, and whereas if you draw a line through the middle of the 6-pointed star, you have exact balance, 3 above and 3 below. So it also works in terms of its form, as representing the balanced place. But this is a high point of evolution. When you are balancing form nature with the spiritual triad, you are definitely in a stage of initiation. Yeah, in fact, you could say possibly, and I'm going out of the limb here, that this could be associated with the 3rd initiation. Because we know that the 5-pointed star is definitely associated with the 5th. So that might be my guess off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, Venus is very, very connected with the number 2 in addition to the number 5. You can its association with Jupiter, for instance, is quite strong. And that association, the two-ness, the duality, is built into the five-pointed star, the up and down pointing, the dual nature. That's in a sense brought into accord through the five-pointed star. Also, the single pointing pointing upwards and the two pointing downwards. Also, that duality, the male and female, the yin yang, which is, as Scott pointed out, inherent in the numbers, of 108. So it really runs deep, folks. We could do an entire additional webinar just on the meaning of this. If we all hit the books and came back, which you're welcome to do, of course. But for today, we're going to have to pull the plug here in a minute. But I'd like to finish. Yeah,
we have just one more comment.
Okay.
If we can do that, let me get to it. Oops, he put his hand down. Let me.
No, it's all right.
Sheldon, go ahead.
Go for it, Sheldon.
You're on self-mute. There.
No explanation for the 6 points.
Sheldon. Hang on. Your microphone is not working. Can you unplug it and try just speaking directly into your computer?
Right.
Try it now.
Better.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
Okay, not important then.
Well, I'm sure it's important. I always enjoy hearing from you. However, and you're welcome to type in the text box, and BL will read it out.
All right, very good.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry that didn't work out. Let's see here. I'm going down. Yeah, here we go. All right. So we're going to move on now to the final phase of our analysis. Let's get a reader for this short paragraph on the third phase in our analysis of all figures today with the pentagram. Can we get a reader, please?
No volunteers yet. There. Please go ahead, Scott.
See, esoterically, this would cover the effect of the force or energy upon you and of the quality of the vibration it may arouse in you, perhaps in some center, perhaps in your astral body, or perhaps only in your mind.
Thank you. So, having familiarized ourselves with the five-pointed star, let's seize the moment. Here, go back into it. Full screen mode here. There we go. All right. So let's reflect on this. Where in ourselves this figure affects us. I recommend just holding it up before the mind's eye or experiencing it within your body as you wish. But keep in mind as you visualize that symbols and geometric figures, rather than being descriptions or analogies of potencies, are in themselves inherently potent. Thus, they have the potential to penetrate and reveal. We'll take exactly 1 minute for this meditation, starting now. Okay, well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. Next month, we'll continue our survey of the number 5. I'll give a history of the pentagram, and then we'll move into the connection of the number 5 with Phi and the golden mean. The reading list remains the same, except for the addition of a small 58-page book entitled The Golden Section by Scott Olson. It's a wonderful little book, but you should purchase it only if you have a particular interest in this subject. It's nice because it only deals with that subject and it's succinct and to the point. However, you can Google search the Golden Section online, and there's a ton of information on different websites if you just want to do a little advanced reading on the subject. For today's meditation, I'd like to lead you in guided visualization using stanza 7 from the stanzas of Zan in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, which describes the process of becoming a 5-pointed star. We'll begin and end with an Om. You're welcome to chant this Om with me as long as you're on self-mute. Or if you have really good pitch, you don't even have to be on self-mute. Okay. Riseth the cave of beauty rare, of color iridescent. Shineth the walls with azure tint, bathed in the light of rose. The blending shade of blue irradiates the whole, and all is merged in gleaming. Within the cave of iridescent color, within its arching circle, standeth the fivefold one, demanding further light. He struggleth for expansion, he wrestleth toward the day. The 5 demand the greater 6th and 7th. The surrounding beauty needeth not the need. The inner warmth sufficeth, but to feed the urge for fire. The lords of flame look on, they chant aloud. The time is come, the time for which we wait. Let the flame become the fire, and let the light shine forth. The effort of the flame within the crystal cave becometh ever greater. The cry goes forth for other aid from other flaming souls. The response comes. The Lord of Flame, the Ancient One, the mighty Lord of Fire, the point of blue within the hidden diamond, the youth of timeless eons, assisteth in the work. The inner burning light and the outer waiting fire, together with the rod, meet on the sphere of crystal, and lo, the work is done. The crystal rends and quivers. 7 times the work proceeds, 7 the efforts made, 7 the applications of the rod held by a Lord of Flame, 3 are the lesser touches, 4 the divine assistance. At the final 4th, the work is done, and the whole cave disrupts. The lighted flame within spreads through the rending walls. It mounteth to its source. Another fire is merged. Another point of blue findeth its place within the diadem logoic. Okay, that's it for today. Don't forget to donate a couple of bucks to the Morya Federation on moryafederation.com, which will help pay the yearly fee for this GoToMeeting account, which makes these webinars possible. Thanks to Brett, these webinars are available on makara.us. Thank you, BL, for your assistance as always. And finally, keep spreading the word about these webinar series. I'd love to fill it up. And thank you all for attending. I'll see you next time, which is always on the third Sunday, and that will be on July 19th. Okay, bye for now.
Bye, everybody.